Oh, hi. What do you think are assets? Assets in real life means your properties, your buildings, your car, maybe. There are a lot of things that can be put to use for your advantage. These are specifically termed as assets. When we're talking about ads and running paid ads and especially campaigns like Google campaigns, what do you think are the assets? Assets are the things that can work to your advantage, right? Now, what can work to your advantage when you speak about Google ads? Your ads are assets, whether it is a text ad, whether it is an image ad, whether it is a video ad. Your ad inventory can be termed as assets. Now, there was a time in Google ads when you clearly had an idea of what was performing better, what position the ads were showing, what are your most favorable assets in terms of your ad texts, so that you can capitalize more on them and then you can revise the others which are not performing well. Eventually, over time, what happened was there were a lot of modifications, and Google went through a lot of iterations. As a part of these iterations, some features were sunset, which means they were not being used anymore, and they were removed from the system, which made way for newer parameters, new variables, new metrics to take over so that you can get much more meaningful context, not just data. On that note, you may find it very interesting to note that there are certain things which are so mixed up in the regular tabs that you see in your Google Ads account, we kind of overlook them, and that is exactly what we would be talking about today. My name is Casey. Welcome to this live stream. Now, before we even begin looking at what I'm talking about and what assets I'm talking about, let's try and understand what assets generally mean. Now, when you speak about something called as assets, I don't like this color, so let's change the color. Let's use this. All right. So when you speak about assets, assets can specifically mean things that can work to your advantage. Now, this can be an ad, which is a text ad. You may have certain image ads which play to your advantage. Now, this is an asset as well. Now, this is a display ad, which is also an asset. Now, you may have the age-old YouTube ad, which is a video ad. This is also an asset. Now, these assets get deployed across different networks. Now, text ads can go and perform in search and display. Now, display ads, which are image ads, can go ahead and perform in display. And then you have video ads, which can go ahead and perform in YouTube. And all these inventory or assets can go ahead and perform in platforms like Discovery Ads. Now, wouldn't you want to know which of these assets are performing better? Now, specifically, we would be talking about ad texts in this case, because we would want to understand if I have ad texts 1, 2, and 3, which are text ads basically. Now, I would want to know which of the elements of these text ads are performing better, which of them needs improvement, and which of them are not performing at all. Now, once I have a clarity on this, it makes it very interesting for me to go ahead and make sure what to include and what not to include. So on that note, we would look at how can this be done, if this can be done using your Google Ads account, or is there an option that can give you this information on your Google Ads account, etc., etc., etc. Now let's get started. Let's jump right onto the screen. Let me show you the tab that I'm talking about, which is often overlooked, and I don't remember very often looking into this option. But when I delve deep into this option, I realized that this can be a goldmine of information. Hold on a minute. Not just that, I will also give you certain rules and regulations that you have to meet for you to go ahead and leverage this information or piece of data that you come across, which will in turn give birth to something called as a deep understanding of a column which we always knew that existed, which is called as segments. So let me actually show you what I mean. And what I want you to understand from this session is if you start looking at terms that you will understand in this session, one of them will be called as assets. Now, this can be a tab that I'm trying to show you, or it could be an option. And another option that I would want to showcase to you today is called as segments. Now, segments is not something which is new. We have looked at it in the past, but we looked at it for different kinds of things. Why is the rectangle not coming? So let me try and draw. My art is pathetic, guys, so you'll have to forgive me for that. Let me try and make something simple. All right. Now, when I'm talking about segments, now this is what I mean. So if you talk about segments, now segments is very, very interesting because it helps you. Now segments basically helps you with understanding your master data that you have. Now let's say I have all the data that's collected into my Google Ads system under different heads. Now what segments does is it helps me to segment this data based upon certain variables that I feed in. For example, I would want to understand device specific metrics. I would want to understand network specific metrics. I would want to understand geographical related metrics. I would want to understand time specific activities, etc., etc., etc. Now, we need to understand what is the correlation between assets and segments, number one. And we would need to look at where each of these things are individually located and how can you leverage this information for a successful Google Ads account. Imagine this to be a trophy. Now, how can you be successful, right? Now, let's jump right onto the screen and let me show you where to find these options. All right, so let's begin. And if you look at your screen, you will see something called as a Google Ads account. I don't need to mention what this is all about. Now, in the Google Ads account, if you pay attention, you will understand. Let me go back to the beginning. We understand the basic things like a time range, time that you can choose from on the right hand side. You have different options that you can choose on the left, and you have certain metrics, etc., etc., etc. Let me show you what I mean. What I'm trying to show you now is only applicable for the search network, guys. Though there are assets which are different, that are different for different kinds of networks. For example, display can mean for a display network. Display assets mean your image ads. Text assets mean your text ads. Now the assets, the specific assets tab that I'm trying to show you today is only applicable for the search network. Now please keep this in mind. There is no point of searching asset related activities or asset related tabs for anything apart from search network, which means predominantly we will only be looking at text assets that you have in your Google Ads account, and we will understand how these text ads can be useful to understand which headline is working better, which headline is better for you, and which description is working in your favor, so that you can leverage this and bring down things that are not performing well. Now that is how you will see a seamless execution and a perfect execution of your Google Ads in terms of text ads, because ultimately a text ad will decide whether your ad becomes clickable or not. Showing your ad is not a big deal. What is a big deal? What is big deal is making sure your ads get clicked, right? So let's jump right onto the screen, and I don't have to tell you that there are a lot of gazillion options in your Google Ads account that can confuse you most of the times. So you need to understand where can you find these options, and that's exactly what I'm trying to show you now. All right, so let's go back to the screen, and this is my Google Ads account. As soon as I log in, this is search campaigns because assets are only available for search networks. And under ads and extensions, you will see a small tab called as assets, which is very, very easy to overlook. Now, under assets, you will have things like the asset itself, whether it is a headline or a description. Now, how many ads are using these assets? Now, a headline called Google PPC course is being used by one ad, and it is not pinned, which means I have not pinned comments onto that. I'll show you how to pin how can you pin the ad text. And this asset, how many times or what percentage of the times that it showed is it terms as best or good or low or learning or unrated, and what is the total number of impressions this particular asset, which is a headline called Google PPC course, got me. Now, well, that may be too much for us to grasp in 1 minute, so let's try and understand that step by step. I have an asset. Typically, the assets that you will see under the assets tab are either headlines or descriptions. It is only available for search network. In a search network ad, which description is the best for me? How many times or how many ads is it used in? Because you can have multiple ad texts. I can use the same headline or description for multiple ad texts. Out of these ad texts, how many times or what percentage number of times is my headline ranked as the best? How many ads are using this headline? What is the percentage of the time it is rated as best or good or low or unrated, or is it still learning? And I will also make sure to understand from this data and make suggestions or to make changes to my existing ad text. So let's jump onto the screen. All right. Now, unlimited updates, get job ready, students, freelancers, and businesses register now. This is a description which is used by one ad, and none of the descriptions in none of the ads are pinned, which means I have not pinned it. When you say pin it, that description will show for sure out of the list of descriptions you have chosen. Now, it is not even once was it classified best, good, low, or learning. It is still classified as unrated, which means it lacks data for it to make a decision. So if you look at the description that it says, the help text says, the unrated column represents how frequently the asset appears without a rating. This can happen if there is not enough assets on the same type with the same ad, or the asset hasn't received enough impressions for it to give a performance rating, which means there is not enough data for the system to go ahead and label it as best, good, low, or unrated. Or learning, sorry. Now, if you go to learning, the learning column represents how frequently the asset appears without a rating, because Google does not have enough information about it. Good, best, and low don't need to be explained. How many times is it rated as the best? How many times is it rated as the good? How many times is it rated as low? All right. Now, while this is what the asset screen will tell you, you can understand by clicking on this one ad to go and see which of the ad is using that particular ad text or that headline, right? Now, I need to clear the filters to get a clarity on that. Now, let's go to assets once again. Now, I want to understand, become a Google Ads Ninja. I think this ad is deleted. Let's go back to the assets. Let's see if there is any description which is being used. This is used by one ad. Right? No ads match your filter. So basically you can go to this ad and make changes if you don't like this, or if you want to make sure you want to edit anything from your ad text. All right. Now, we know these are the assets, but you need to understand that there are certain guidelines for using assets. Where is that? So let me go back to your assets. Right? Before you even begin, how does it work? There is one typical condition that I would want to show you, which is asset type defines only headline and description. We have seen that. Position pinning, if you have pinned it, it will show you what position did it appear, how many times did it appear before the search results, etc., etc. Now, there is one condition. Responsive search ads actually need around 5,000 impressions in the Google top segment over 30 days to display a rating in a performance column. Now, if you pay close attention to this, you will understand why is it unrated even after having so many impressions. There are at least 100 odd impressions if you look at the screen. All right, so if you look at the screen, there are 11 impressions for the first asset, there are 99 impressions for the second asset, there are 3, 10, 39, 18, 183, all these impressions, right? Now, even if it has impressions, why is it still unrated is the question. Now, you need to understand that there is a condition that has to be met for you to understand why there is no rating of best, good, or low on these. Now, why is there no rating? There has to be at least 5,000 impressions in the last 30 days in the top segment. Now, that is confusing. Now, where the hell is this top segment? What the hell are we talking about? Where is the top segment? What is the top segment? Blah, 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 blah. That brings us to the next most important part of this discussion, which is understanding segments. Segments, if you remember the screen that I showed you, let me take you back to the screen. If you remember where we spoke about segments, right? Segments help you understand data in segments. You can leverage it based upon the variables that you have defined. Now, the segment that we are talking about here is it should have 5,000 impressions in the last 30 days under a segment called top, right? Now, this is what we will be hunting for now. So hold on until I show you where to find that. So let's go back to the screen. All right. Now, let's go to this particular campaign. I know which campaign we're talking about. So let's go back to the campaign. Do you see the campaign related to Google Ads Ninja? Okay, this should be the one. All right. So go back to this campaign, go to the campaigns section. Okay, now let's go ahead and split this campaign based upon segments. Now you may want to pay close attention. Now I know I've gone to the campaign screen. Now this is what I need to pay attention to because this is the campaign that I have. So from here, let's go to segment, and you need to talk about top, right? Top versus bottom or whatever. So you have an option called top versus other. This is very important, guys. Ad shown on top of the page compared to the other places in the page. Now we all know ads can show on top of the page, they can show at the bottom of the page, they can show in the next page, etc. But if you want to understand when will assets be applicable for you, assets will only be applicable for you if you have 5,000 impressions in the last 30 days appearing in the top segment. So let's segment the data based upon this segmenting rule. I divided this into, do you see this? Now the topic or the campaign in question is this. Now this campaign should have had at least 5,000 impressions in the last 30 days. Now how many impressions do I have? 179. So for that precise reason, I don't have a valid rating, which is good, low, bad, etc. on the assets page. Why? Because I don't have over 5,000 impressions in the last 30 days appearing under top. Now you need to understand two things from this. You need to understand segment is a section where you will understand most of the segmenting variables that will give you much more context. Now, if you pay attention, you can go to your segment and you can split this on the basis of your device, right? You will understand whether computers are bringing in more traffic or mobiles is more traffic or tablets is getting you more traffic. There are a bunch of segments that you can split based upon the hour of the day, ad destination, conversions, etc., etc., etc. But now we will need to look at top versus others. So if you pay close attention, how many times did my ad show on the top of the search results, right? 12.85% and 179 impressions. And how many times did it show at other places? Now other places can be below the search results, and it allows you performance data for Google search and shopping, blah, blah. But absolute top of the page, it was shown only 179 times. That is one reason my assets did not have a clear label, which is a good, bad, or low, because it doesn't have enough data, because it didn't meet the condition of showing at least 5,000 times in the top section of the Google search results. That's it. Well, I speak too much, but it's worth it, right? So two things to remember from this stream. One is you need to pay attention to the assets tab if you want to get an idea of which of your headlines or descriptions are performing at the absolute best potential, so that you can bring in more ad text, you can write more ad texts on those lines, you can find out more variations of those headlines or descriptions. Or if you know something is not working, if Google has labeled it as low in this screen, if you go to your assets under ad extensions, if you go to your assets, and if there is everything that you have here is labeled as low, for example, then you need to change these ad texts because they're absolutely not performing. So that is for us to decide, analyze, and then make changes accordingly. So that's about it about assets and segments from my end. If you have enjoyed this session, you know what to do. All you need to do is subscribe to this channel. That motivates the hell out of me to bring more content like this to you each and every day. Well, almost. Thank you so much. My name is Casey. Until next time, ciao.